Yo,
Hey,
what's up, man?
hold on. I can't hear you worth spit.
Oh, really? Is that
Yep. No, it was me. It was me.
okay?
Make sure I got my speaker and my microphone right. Does it sound like a spaceship like it has in the past?
No, it's actually
So far.
right. So far, I feel like the last time we had a chat, it would just sporadically turn into UFO mode.
Yup. Oh my god. Yeah. No, so I got a new mic for Christmas. Christina got
Oh,
me a little
shit.
Samsung. I think it's Go is the name of it. Tiny little thing.
Right.
But I just did a podcast episode actually with Jenny Moe. And it was so much better in terms of the sound quality. I was
Right.
pretty sick. I effed it up the first time because I didn't go into the settings and switch where the audio is coming from, right? So it was still taking it from my laptop, even though I had the microphone in front of me. I felt like an idiot, but live and learn.
You're using it now?
I am, yeah.
It sounds
Yep.
good. You're clear,
Thanks.
crystal clear, man.
Love that.
Yeah.
I got some new.
High
Oh, I got some new
fidelity.
tech today. I got myself a UB size tripod, a little tripod thing.
Oh, son of
Be able to record some video and not have to prop my phone up against the wall or a shoe.
There you go. I dig
Yeah,
it, man.
I know. Moving up in the world,
That's right.
$15 items here and there. It's amazing what it does.
High production value.
Dude, how are you?
I'm good, man.
Yeah,
So I'm away from work too
yeah.
now. This is day 2 of being at home for me because I had an encounter. So I was still working. I know. So hold on. So I was at work and I was working with this guy, and a day later, that guy calls and he says that his roommate tested positive for COVID. I
Oh
was like,
God.
oh shit. Now, granted, the guy I was working with, there was no hands-on, there wasn't really any proximity of me being super near him, and I had a mask, thank God. So that it's not like it wasn't one of those fancy N95 or whatever, but it was at least something to give a barrier. So yeah, that honestly weirded me out a little bit, and so now I'm doing a 2-week self quarantine as a result of that. So I have a lot more time now.
Same. Same. Yeah.
So how did your situation end up? Because
Yeah.
yours is voluntary, right? What was your situation?
Yeah. It started out voluntary, where I had asked. Gosh, I'd been asking my supervisors since the beginning of March. I was like, "Yo, are you watching this? What you have a plan for this? What are you going to do about this? Have you guys thought about this?" Um, and he was like, "Everything's on the table. Everything's on the table." I kept hearing that. Uh,
Right.
so I had asked, like, "Hey, we're going to try and talk to our patients about telehealth options. Are we going to, are we going to furlough? Are we going to take time away? Blah blah blah. Shut down, like with pay, without pay?" And he was like, "Everything's on the table." And then it got to a point. It was March. It was the 17th. It might have been. It was a Tuesday. And I called him and I was like, "Hey," it was like 8 o'clock at night, and I was like, "Dude, I'm looking at this and I have to pull the plug on myself to do what I think is best for my health and my patient's health." And part of my hope, honestly, was that being the only therapist at that brand new clinic, that they would be kind of stretched thin and they wouldn't really be able to make it work long term. And so they would kind of go, "All right, we're going to press pause over here." Um, at that young clinic, it had been open for 6-8 weeks. At that point, it was 6 weeks that it had been open. So I was hoping to kind of have that domino effect, and it didn't quite do that. They were able to manage some coverage amongst therapists from other clinics that have Maryland and DC licenses and do the juggle. And then on Friday the 27th, I got a phone call from my supervisor, and I kept in touch with him, and he kind of was like, "Hey, how long are you going to be away?" And I was like, "Dude, I don't know, but I'll know when I know." And I was like, "I can definitely say at least a month, right? I'm very confident in that."
Right.
And then, I kind of looked at it and I was like, well, it's probably gonna be longer than that also. So I can say 2 months type thing. And then on the Friday the 27th, he called me and he was like, "Hey, so they talked with ownership and blah, blah, blah. And they've got clinics all through Maryland, Virginia, and DC." And it was pretty much like, come to work or you're being terminated. And it was like, fair. And I
Okay.
was like, I'm not changing my mind. And he didn't try. He was great about it. His communication with me was fantastic, and it wasn't forcing. And I said, dude, here's what I'm comfortable with. Here's what I'm not comfortable with. Here's what's up. Here's what I think we need to do, based on clinical judgment, kind of going off APTA's statements and looking at DC Department of Health. Oh, that was a tipping scale for me that said like postpone non-urgent elective and outpatient visits. And I'm like, that's
Right.
us. Kind of, not that we're
Yeah.
elective or not, I'm not trying to downplay the necessity and what we do for people's health in the community, but yeah, I was like, okay, that's my tipping point. I thought that was the best course of action, and I was told that they'd gone over stuff with their attorneys and they interpreted it differently, was like literally the quote. And I was like, all right, so you don't need an attorney to figure this out, right? Like, you need an attorney to cover your ass. So I understood what they were doing, and I was very comfortable with my decision. And I was like, I'm not changing my decision. And he was like, I'm not calling to like try and convince you otherwise. I wouldn't want someone to come in who doesn't feel safe coming in or doesn't want to be there. It's not good
Right.
for our culture. It's not good for potential quality of care for patients and all that stuff, which I thought he had a pretty good head about. And I was like, all right, cool. So pretty much, I got laid off, and I told him like, hey, if things blow over, trying to keep my doors open, avenues and
Yeah.
opportunities, bridges afloat, whatever you want to call it. I kind of said, hey, I'll come back when I'll come reapply when things are smoothed over. You'll get a phone call from me. So my guess and hope is somewhere around June, right? That beginning of June, 2 months from now, like when we kind of flattened out, similar to how hate to use it because I feel like it's been misleading from the beginning, but how it's flattened out, like with China, looking at their trajectories and their data points over time. I'm still curious to see if there's going to be an uptick over there as like a second wave or anything like that. But so I had to go back and give the key actually on Monday, and in return, I borrowed a piece of equipment. My wrist was bothering me, so I grabbed a Digiflex just to like work on my grip a bunch. I had to bring that back and whatever else. I was like, it was kind of sad. I had to like give the key back.
Right.
Kind of monumental in a way. But I feel good about it. I don't really regret it. And then I was like, all right, time to jump on this unemployment train with like, originally I think it was like 3 million, and then now it's like 6 million Americans apparently.
That are unemployed.
I think that got laid off or are having issue or even applying for unemployment right now. And part of that is also part-time employed people who lost hours. They can also apply with the new relief bill that was put through. And then also gig economy is being told like kind of to wait. I think some people are applying anyway, try and get their paperwork started and through. So I called, or I tried to do DC unemployment online, and oh my God, this was the biggest headache of my life. The clinic has only been open for 6 weeks. Now it's 2 months, but 6 weeks at the time that like I was there pretty much. And they ask online if you've worked between, God, it was like October of 2018 and September of 2019 in DC. And I was like, well, no, because I've only worked in 2020 in DC. Right. So I said no. And they're like, oh, sorry, you're not eligible to apply for unemployment in DC. I'm like, crap.
Oh my God.
So then I had to call. So I jumped on the phone, I called, and I went through the system, and I knew they opened at 8:30. So 8:30 on the dot, I'm calling, and I go through the initial thing. It hangs up on me when I click 1 to file a new claim. And then I go to general, I leave a voicemail, pressing 7 and leave the voicemail with my phone number. Hey, give me a call back. And I had spoke to somebody on Friday of last week, actually, that was like, yeah, I'll give you a call back in 3 days. So I was like, all right, cool. Obviously that didn't happen. I don't blame them, but it's just kind of like, hey, that's tough. Right. And then I called again and I hit 3 for general information, thinking he was going to read off, like, oh, our office hours are da-da-da, and here's where you go online and file a new claim. I actually got a person, which was exciting. So then I talked to the guy there, and he was like, you need to go back and you need to press 2. And I was like, no, it says 2 is for existing claims and, repeat, blah, 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 recertification, whatnot, week to week. And he's like, no, we were just told yesterday that is for filing new claims. 1 is for like recert, and that will hang up on you. But 2 is for new. And I was like, wow, this is revolutionary information. Also, I just got off the phone with your system they can tell you whatever they want, but on the user experience side, here's what's happening. And I wasn't trying to push it on him. I was like, this is just literally what I just did 4 minutes ago. So I'm just telling you. So then I got the phone and I called back and I went through that process. I hit 2 this time and I sat on hold for 4 hours.
I saw your post about that.
Yeah, at 4 hours and 2 seconds, it goes bloop, and it just hung up, and that was it. There was no like goodbye, and it was just like it was done. And I,
oh my god,
had headphones in. I had one in, and I kind of have it in my pocket. And I was texting people back and forth, and I was reading because I can't like do much. Like you can't have too much brain power elsewhere because I kind of have to be able to be ready for a person to jump on and be like, oh, hi, my name is Phill Van Pelt, blah, blah, blah.
Right,
like,
exactly.
Yeah, because they're not wasting time. If they don't hear you, they might just hang up and move on to the next person. And I called when I did. I was on hold for 4 hours, but the day before, I called at like 9 o'clock. Or no, sorry, I called at 1. I called at 1 p.m. and I knew there was no shot, but I couldn't even get on hold. It was so overflowed, you couldn't even get on hold. It was like, sorry, it system's like overflowed, goodbye. And it would just hang up in the first 3 seconds. It wouldn't even give you the menu of options. Was it yesterday? God, time. I think it was yesterday I applied for unemployment. I don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
But when I successfully got through, I called at 8:28. They don't open until 8:30. I knew it takes me about 3 minutes to get to the menu option I want. Hit the button. 3 minutes later, someone was like, hey, can you hold for a few minutes? And I was like, yeah. So I was on hold for 4 more minutes and I talked to somebody, and it took me 15 minutes, 20 minutes to give her my information and say, hey, I was impacted by COVID-19, lost my job, blah, blah, blah. I was laid off. Was terminated, and gave her the stuff. And I got an email last night saying I'll get something in the mail. She told me I get something in the mail, and then I just got to wait until next week to get something in the mail from Department of Employment Services in DC, and then go that route and kind of find out what's what. So it's kind of this exciting stop and start waiting game.
Right.
Yeah, but that's been my unemployment experience so far. And then just trying to take it day by day, talk with people, reconnect with a couple old friends, a couple phone conversations, chilling, FaceTime with my parents, a couple workouts, which is weird to me. I don't know if how you've been doing with this, but like working out in my apartment feels very odd to me.
It's terrible, man. I actually joined because I was doing some workouts on my own and just kind of planning a split. And I actually did a podcast about this earlier, but basically about how I've been trying different workouts that ordinarily I wouldn't do, like running or yoga. I mean, I had been doing yoga before, but it was really just for mobility. It wasn't like intense. Let me do an entire workout based off of yoga.
Yeah.
And I've found very quickly that I keep up with it, but I don't know. I can stick with the yoga because there's someone telling me what to do. But when I plan my own workout, that shit just doesn't work. So I joined this app called Daily Burn. Have you heard of that?
I've not.
So it's one of the more popular workout apps where you kind of like follow along with a class or whatever. The problem is that a lot of them require equipment, dumbbells and like a lot, like plyo boxes and kettlebell. I don't have any of that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I found a body weight one today that I tried, and there's like certain. So the person that does the instructing, I get that you have to be like motivated and peppy and like, yeah, go, hurrah, hurrah.
Yeah.
But it was so over the top. It reminds me of like the P90X and Insanity, just like way over the top hypeness.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm cool. Like
it feels kind of forced.
You can tone it down a little bit. Like I don't need all that, but I get it. Some people probably like it. So anyway, I've been doing some of that, and my workouts haven't necessarily been much longer than about 30 minutes. It's hard to work out at home.
Yeah, it's weird. Christina was saying the same thing. She was kind of struggling with the idea of like doing a full workout at home, kind of like going through the whole thing. It feels very odd. I think it feels very odd. I'm getting a little bit better at it, but when you're just kind of doing something, it's like, ugh. And it doesn't have the same like gusto to it. So I get trying to have that raw energy, but um, I think that's something, you know, we think about like technology and how advanced and how automated will we get. And I think to a certain point, we will always need that a certain amount of in-person connection and experience with other people. It's kind of embracing the suck, if you will, right? Of
Yeah.
pushing through a workout, doing something hard and challenging together in the same room, even if it's, you don't really communicate. It's just like you, I don't know, there's a certain solidarity to that environment that I think, and the environment itself, right? How it kind of primes your brain to say, okay, here's what I'm doing. It's very interesting.
I agree. Yeah. I miss the whole CrossFit experience and all of that. Because even the ones that you can do where it is a group class, you know, it's this pre-recorded thing that's already been done, and it's like, well, you don't feel it like you do when you're in person,
Yeah.
and so that's been pretty difficult. And I've known that for me trying to just work out on my own without anything, without any video or whatever. I did a workout, I think it was either yesterday or the day before. And I was like, all right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do, I forget what it was. I think I was going to do something similar to one of the workouts I posted on Facebook prior, like what was it? 100 push-ups, 100 rows, 100, some sort of shoulder workout. I
Yeah.
got through half of it. I'm like, I'm done. I just went and got a coffee. I was like,
Yeah.
this is, there wasn't any motivation there.
I think that's okay though. You know, like this isn't like normal circumstances, right? Uh, I saw something earlier that kind of shifted my perspective a little bit on it. And it was like, you know, this isn't, and this I think goes for workouts as it does like physically working, right? From home and whatnot. It's like, you're not working from home, and kind of changing how you phrase it, right? You're home during a crisis trying to work.
Mm-hmm.
I think that takes more into account all of the psychological and emotional uncertainty and turmoil and uh, clash, right? Like deprivation, you know, of connection, which kind of with that, you know, what you're just talking about. I think that's the thing that sets us back almost the most, is like we crave connection. We crave that personal, intimate side of things, right? And I think that's something that in some way or another, whether it's office culture or it's, you know, gym or box, you know, environment and climate and culture, and, you know, it's something in the atmosphere, right? It's like it's in the air. Like when you walk in, you know what you're there to do and you're all on the same page. But right now with like everything the way that it is, there's a crisis, and we are trying to maintain some form of normalcy, but, you know, kind of recognizing that like it's not really gonna be is okay. And it was interesting to almost give myself permission when I read that. I was like, oh, you know, like we're just trying to work while there's a crisis going on. We gotta I think reframing a little bit helps be less critical of ourselves, of like, oh, I used to be able to do X, Y, and Z, you know, without a problem, and now I can't even, you know, do half the workout that I want to do that I did previously. Right. So it's super interesting how to like that psychology, how the brain does that. But yeah, something I've been thinking about is like the psychology of this a little bit too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. How are people in general taking it around where you're living? Are people generally pretty adherent, or is no one like giving a shit? Like what's
there? I don't know if I can. You can definitely tell when you walk outside, right, that there's not as many cars. Like I live literally a block from the DC border, in Maryland, and we have very busy intersections on either side of our apartment building, and the traffic is dramatically decreased. So I do think by and large, a majority of people are staying home, which is fantastic. And you know, when you're walking around, it has that eerie ghost-like feeling to it in some sense, but there are still some people doing stuff. There's still like construction guys and, you know, landscaping crews working at the apartment complex like next door. That's, you know, not high rise, it's more spread out. It's like, what are you doing? Like that can't be essential. I'm sorry. I mean, the
Right.
construction piece of the purple line for mass transit, maybe you can argue that, but you mowing the lawn and blowing the leaves for that apartment building, I struggle to reconcile that. But I would say people are mostly following it, right? I don't live in Florida. You know, it's not pictures of people on the beaches flocked hanging out.
Right.
So I don't have a great example of people not. So I'm going to say that people by and large are. I actually went to the grocery store on Tuesday morning, and, you know, I had a simple surgical mask and gloves, and when I got out of the store, I took them off, and, you know, I tried to have a process so that anything that I touched ended up on the floor of the car, and then I was able to, you know, clean it, disinfect it, and then leave it for a little while, and then come back and get it. So try to have a smart process to that as best I could.
Right.
And if nothing else, like the mask will help me from not touching my face. It's amazing how much we touch our faces and don't even realize it, whether it's just like scratching your facial hair, you know, or your chin, or like
Oh yeah.
kind of brushing your hair. Like it's amazing how much we touch our face, and being aware, like trying to be more aware of that now is eye-opening. But even then, I think people did a good job trying to like do circles around each other, where like I walk to the right and they walk to the left a little bit of
Oh
a curve
really?
to give that extra space. I did that with a few people who were also wearing masks or gloves, and, you know, one or both or one or the other. And at the grocery store here, we have a giant Stop and Shop in other areas and whatnot.
Mhm.
But at the cash register, they had like a giant piece of plexiglass. It was probably, I'm gonna say 2.5 feet wide by 3 to 3.5 feet tall. So that, like, if my computer screen is, and, you know, I'm the cashier and I'm scanning
Uh-huh.
stuff, just behind the, you know, their screen was where that wall was. So you could stand there, you'd have the credit card machine just to the side of that. And so that, you know, there was a very physical barrier between you and the cashier. And it had me thrown for such a loop. I didn't scan my, you know, shopper bonus card, and I definitely threw away like $12 in savings on the chicken that I bought. So I was kind of
Right.
shaking my head, but, you know, and I was like, I don't even care. But it was a very different and odd experience, right? It was, I don't think there was any music playing, right? Often like grocery stores have a little bit of background
Oh
music on,
really?
like, yeah,
Oh
like
weird.
there was nothing. Which the entire experience was rather odd, right? Because I was so concentrated and focused,
Hmm.
trying to be careful and diligent. Like, if I touched, you know, I grabbed like a thing of bananas. Like, I didn't touch one and go, oh, these are too green, and put them back. Like, I was like, all right, I'm taking these and done. So that I,
Right. You just got
again,
to go
minimize
for
my
it.
touching. Yeah, go, take, get out. So I was only there for 25 minutes or so, but I don't know. It just felt weird. And I don't know how to describe it other than that. I think it's because it's just so different than what we're used
Hmm.
to. And we got so used to that normal hustle and bustle. And now it's like slowed down. What about you? What do you got near you?
Well, so the main grocery store around here is Publix, and
Yeah.
I want to say that they're doing the plexiglass thing, which I think is a good idea, by the way. I thought that was I saw that on the news the other night, and I thought, well, that's a pretty, genius solution. I think
Yeah.
it kind of bank teller-ish, but yeah, people are used to
Yeah.
that anyway, so it's not really that crazy of a concept. But around here, so what they've been doing here, since we have obviously a ton of older people, is grocery stores are open 8 to 8 now, so limited, relatively speaking,
Yeah.
hours. And then from 7 to 8 is basically senior hour. And so if you're 65 and older, you can have room of the store, and you can, you know, do what you need to do at that
Yeah.
time. The thing where people screw up is whenever I would drive to work, I would go and I would pass by a Publix, and I would usually pass there around let's say like 7:45 or so, and there was always a group of people waiting in line to get in the store. No distancing, no, yeah, no shits given. They're just like crowded around the front of the store. I'm like, and this is even
Guys,
recently. Like I could understand it if it was, a month or two ago and things are kind of just starting to unravel. Not many people are taking it seriously, but now it's pretty evident that it's everywhere,
yep.
and people are still, now some had masks, but even still, they're just all up on each other, waiting for the store to open. One, what do you need so immediately that you have to wait in line to get it? Unless you're like trying to go before work or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But let's be real. A lot of the people that live around where I do are retired. Like they got nothing but time. So I don't know. I don't really see a need to wait in line. But I haven't actually been to a grocery store terribly recently, so I don't really know what it's like on the inside. Our
Mm.
our house is pretty stockpiled at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, March 4th, I went and did I'll say my, I don't want to say doomsday preparedness shopping, but like that's when I went and spent, $170 on like soup and beans and rice. And like that's where I got my, prep. Cause, Chrison and I, we largely will do a fair amount of produce and try and do fresh fruits and vegetables and buy a pack of chicken and then have that in the freezer for the next like week and a half, 2 weeks, and then we'll have to buy another one when that starts to get low in that second week. So we didn't really have a ton of food just like on hand, you know 4 or 5 jars of peanut butter, extra cans of tuna type thing. So I have a friend who lives and works in New Jersey in close connection with the government over there, and they were like, yeah, this is looking at like 4 to 6 weeks of issue. We should be prepared for 4 to 6 weeks of problem. And this was first week of March. So this was a month ago.
Mhm.
And I was like, I don't have much. And I looked around and I was like, nobody else is doing anything about this right now. So I went and did my thing, and I went and, got 95% of what we needed type thing.
Right.
That day. And then it was like, all right, pick up a little extra, went and bought colored pencils like 2 weeks ago. Um,
Colored
give us
pencils?
something to do. Yeah, I need something to do.
What are you doing?
Coloring.
Are you serious? Like you have a
Yeah,
color?
I've got it's on my fridge.
No
I
way.
posted a picture of it on my Facebook actually. Yeah, it's on. Go look at my Facebook profile. Like 3 or 4 posts ago, I have a picture. It took me 3 fucking hours, but you do like an adult coloring thing. It's supposed to be like,
Oh, it's an adult coloring book.
yeah, like relieve stress and all that crap. I don't recommend the adult ones because it takes so dang long. But
You don't mean like adult, like nude photos, do you?
no. They're just more complicated, right? They got like tiny little uh, shapes, and there's a whole bunch of different little areas. And look up like adult coloring, and you'll find.
I'm looking for your post about it.
Oh, okay. You'll see there's a lot of intricate detail to it versus like if you do
Oh,
a
wait,
kid's
is it
book.
the Hope thing?
Yeah, it says hope on the front.
Oh,
It was
dude.
going to be clear white
Yeah.
for the writing, but because I was on there so long and I started to get irritated about it, my palm smudged it smudged, so then it got like kind of messy. So I was like, I gotta fill this in.
Right. Dude, that
But
looks
like
like
you
a pain
think
in the ass. I'm not going to lie.
it was, after a certain point, it was just a process. It was a task to complete. But you look at kids coloring books, right? And it's Woody and Buzz from Toy Story, and there's
Right.
4 colors, and there's 12 rectangles you got to color in, and there's no background. And this is like detail in the background, detail in the forefront, like it very different. 15 minutes versus 3 hours, and I couldn't find anything in the middle. So I went with 3 hours, unfortunately, as it turned out. Yeah, but I did my shopping pretty early. And then now we signed up for Peapod for like a grocery delivery service.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Which fantastic idea, except, and I read about this happening in China, that when the clock strikes midnight, the next day becomes available. And they do about 2 weeks at a time in advance that you can plan out your grocery delivery. So I looked at, I don't know, 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, one night, like last week, and every single time slot was sold out for the next 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, wow, between now and April 11th. And I was like, okay, so I guess I'm not ordering groceries right now. And that's when it clicked. Like, oh, I read this article about what was going on in China in February, early March, where at midnight, then that next day, 2 weeks from then, becomes available in the system. And so everyone tries to log on right away and claim and reserve their time slot so they can buy groceries. So you have to, get in and reserve a time slot and then check out, and you can then reserve that time. So I ended up rolling over actually at like 3:00 in the morning. And so I got up and I just like popped in a bunch of groceries, basic stuff, milk, eggs, bread, tried to double up a little bit because like, I don't know if I'll be able to get that again. And I did it, at 3:00 in the morning, and there were only 2 spots available out of an entire 10-hour, 11-hour delivery day for those guys. It goes from 6 a.m. all the way up until about, it was like 8 or 9 p.m. that they had time slots available, usually about like every hour of like, hey, it'll be between, and they had 2 where it was between my slots between 6 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. And the other one was from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. that like they might show up during that time. And I was like, oh crap. So I took the early one hoping that like if they go early and then it gets messed up, hopefully it'll come later in the day. But that was kind of a surreal thing. And now, of course, I forgot my password for the Peapod account, so I have to do it on my phone. I can't like transfer it to my laptop to make it easy. So Kristan and I can look at it and be like, all right, do we want to add anything? Do we want to change anything? And whatever else. So it was like, but yeah, it's kind of a crazy thing too. I recommend it if we can do it. If you can do it, a little grocery delivery action, again, minimizing that person-to-person contact where we think a large part of this is transmitted between us.
I just worry about I worry about, well, I don't really worry, I guess, but I do have a little bit of apprehension about someone else getting the groceries, especially if they're not doing their part. Like I assume it's the like Peapod, that's Giant, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I assume it's their employees doing it. So they probably have standards, but I know that there's other apps and things where it's not the employees, and I guess I'm a little bit skeptical of that kind of a thing. And I'm picky about my produce, but that's enough.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. Picky about my produce.
Sorry about it.
Yeah, there's other options like Instacart, right? Because not every grocery store, like I don't know if you guys have Aldi's, right? Like they don't have a delivery service, but Instacart will go to Aldi's, have someone go there, buy your stuff, and then you end up getting charged for it, and they'll deliver it to you. So yeah, definitely, there's definitely other question marks there, but it's kind of like, all right, how do I hedge my bets, minimize my risk as best as possible? Just do what you can, and then kind of go, okay, I'm gonna roll with it from there, kind of ride it out, see what happens. So
yeah, do you use DoorDash or anything like that? Have you been doing any of that recently?
You mean like for takeout and stuff?
Yeah. Or do you not do that? Do you cook everything?
We pretty much cook everything. This was like
good.
Eye-opening revelation for us, when people are like, oh, now I have to make dinner every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. And I'm like, yeah, well, what did you do before this? Like, because we, by and large, will stay in and eat, right? And it's definitely helped our savings, right? If we go out for a couple of drinks on let's say every Friday night, all of a sudden, if we spend $30, having a few beers or whatever between the two of us, like plus tip, and poof, like you're at $150 for a month really fast. And if we do that twice, then it's at $300, Friday and Saturday night, then it's at $300 a month. And that's a, $3,000 bill each year or more. So, for us, it's always been about kind of I'll say partially the frugality of it. And a little bit of the health. And I think it's worked out for us in this instance where like, it's not too much different for us now. And we know how much groceries we need in a given week versus like if you only cooked at home, let's say 3 or 4 or 5 days a week, and now you got to do all 7 or most, higher percentage, you go, crap, like how much do I actually need? You kind of have to guess and figure it out. But like we know, all right, here's about how much we'll need for a given week, and then go from there. So we don't like do a lot of takeout. We don't go out and like eat a ton, which has helped, I would say, with our savings and ability to pay loans. So pretty
good for you, man.
I would say fortunate, but like it didn't happen by chance either, right? Like there was some thought that went into that. So it was the decision we made.
That's good that would be so freaking hard for me to do. I'm going to tell you that right now. because I am someone that I don't really like cooking. And so I'll
Yeah.
do a Sunday meal prep, and that usually lasts me till Thursday.
Okay.
But then Friday, Saturday, dude, it's let's go.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I at least feel comfortable splurging on. I guess I find other things to scrimp on, because Friday, Saturday night, that's time to. No, I'm not talking like go out and get $100 dinners, but you know, happy hour. I'll go out
Yeah.
and do some of that. Especially around here, dude. People happy hour is basically all day here in Florida. That's all people do. So
I'm
it's
retired. All I got is time, right?
one of the biggest deals that I see around here, at least in Port St. Lucie, is places will do 2 for 1. So you buy one Bud Light or whatever the case may be, get
Yeah.
another one free. It's not, oh, happy hour, let's get it for half off. Let's get you trashed. You're going to buy one. We're just going to give you another. And that almost seems like a better deal for people. So then they just,
Oh.
pile on.
Well, yeah, I mean, if people are going out for happy hour or drinks after work type thing, like we don't, that's the thing, like we can be like, oh yeah, like let's go. Cause we're not going, oh crap, like I already went out 3 times this week, or we, did take out a couple times this week, like shit, like our budget is getting tight. It's like, all right, you want to go out? Cool. We can do that. And DC is definitely a happy hour hotspot too, depending on where you are, right? Oh
Yeah.
my God. So, if people are going out and having a drink, sure. I don't have to feel bad about it, which is pretty awesome too. Give and take. That's interesting, like play on the happy hour deal of like, instead of, oh, half off or $2 off beers is what we'll see a lot here, right? It'll be a $7 or $8 beer, but you'll be like, oh, I'll get the $8 one because now it's 6 versus
Right.
8. So
Well,
yeah.
everything's more expensive there.
Yeah.
Everything.
How much is like I don't know, a decent beer, not a Bud Light, in your area?
I would say pretty much if you want to get anything craft, it is probably $5. Never
Okay.
above 6, unless you're going to an actual specialty place. Like
Got
we
it.
have a place called Vine and Barley, which has a ton of craft beer in it. And so obviously, if you want to get this bourbon barrel aged
Yeah.
imperial stout,
Yes.
that's gonna run you. Even that's like $8 or $9. It's not. See,
Okay.
I'm in my face again.
Yeah, I did it before. It's a
Right.
little like thumb the nose, like a little itch, and you're like,
Right.
oh, damn it.
But yeah, that it's never terribly expensive. For me to get DC prices, I'd have to go down to Lauderdale or Miami, obviously. But I will say the food up there is way better than it is here. So
You could see that. Yeah, I would say the same thing here. You go to some of the smaller hole in the walls, it's a hit or miss thing, and if you go to a bump in place DC, more towards downtown, that's like not a chain, you can get some fantastic food, which is always nice.
oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So what else are you like doing? Like what's your are you able to work on business stuff, or what's the deal with that?
Yeah. So I had this planned in my head for a while that I was going to try and go in this direction. But I kind of figured I would do it between now and through the end of the summer. And I've kind of like changed and shifted and narrowed the focus on this. So that's why I've been more active on social media, on Facebook, I'll say in particular. So I've been doing coaching with actually a guy who's down in Clearwater area online. Knees over toes guy on Instagram. And he is an online trainer, coach, who's had knee pain and issues and knee surgery in his teenage years, and had a lot of pain and an issue and wasn't getting better. And he kind of just started figuring stuff out of how to make this better and then improve his athletic performance and get rid of his pain and just keep going and then replicate kind of this process. So his things is like, if you can walk, then I can help you get started and get moving. So I found him through somebody else on Instagram, and it's like, all right, and kind of you check people out for a while, and then I jumped on board. He had a little deal going on, so it was like $31 for a month online coaching, $50 normally, $50 month to month, no contract, be done whenever you want, and then you can record yourself on your last set, send it in, and then they will review your form for you and give you feedback in less than 24 hours. And they've got programs and of kind of varying of a bunch of different varieties. If you don't have any equipment, you don't have a gym to go to, or if you're focusing on kind of improving your jump, or you're a football player trying to put on more mass and then also get faster and more flexible and everything else. So I started doing that, and that was, I would say, my first 3 months of the year of 2020 doing those workouts, and holy cow, I've never felt bouncier in my life.
Really?
I signed up because I've always had the dream of dunking basketball on a 10-foot hoop. I used to be able to grab the rim with 2 hands without too much of a problem.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've got some hops, but I was like, all right, how can I get that last bit, right? How can I get those? It's probably another 8 to 10 inches to get above the rim. I think I'm probably at like a 30-inch vertical right now. It's probably my guesstimate.
Damn, dude. Okay.
So yeah, I was just learning to try and do this, like for myself. And I started figuring out like, okay, like this, a lot of it is very similar to things we do in rehab, right? So people have knee pain. We have them walk backwards on the treadmill on an incline. And it's a great way to get them moving, a little bit of a warm up without really causing any pain. And working on step downs and getting some calf raises in, and
Right.
then just going, okay, how do we progress that step down? And he kind of named it for himself in a way. He calls it the Patrick step up, but it's effectively a step down in the rehab world, right? You're on the block and you step down, touch the heel, and then come back up. So you're working the eccentric and then the concentric phase of the motion. Start and only work in pain-free ranges and rep schemes, and then as you get stronger and get better, you can build up the height. Then you build up the height to about 6 inches. Once you get to 6 inches, then how do we make it harder? Well, we add weight, you add more resistance. Then when it's just you, or you're going down the stairs, your body is now capable of more than what the stairs in everyday life would require. And so now you're able to better tolerate that. So a lot of his I'll say approaches to how he built his workouts makes a lot of sense from a physical therapy standpoint. So I really liked it. But he works a lot with younger, I'll say, freakish athletes down in Florida that'll come and work out with him, totally shredded. And I as a PT, I think about like the older population in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, who are being told, they have bone on bone, they've got crazy arthritis in their knees, and, they just kind of shut down, and they're told like knee replacement is your future. And then, like 30% of people with knee replacements end up so like they don't get, I'll say, the promise that, of this cure that they were told about. Right. I think knee replacements are a little bit oversold as to how great they can be to help people with knee pain. A lot of people do really well with them, which is awesome. And they're getting really good at minimizing like the damage or injury to the body during the surgery. But there's still a good chunk of people that will have this surgery and then not be better. And we're doing about 700,000 knee replacements in a given year, and they're expecting it to go up to 3.5 million in the next 10 years per year. Right. So there's so many people that could benefit, but if you change the marketing around so that it's not a shredded, 29-year-old basketball player towards other, athletes who may have a little nagging knee pain, want to get back to being able to play basketball or play soccer or whatever it may be. How do you guide that? How do you kind of remold that so that your, 55-year-old mom or dad who's got knee pain but hasn't really done anything about it yet, but they're looking at their parents who are in their 80s and going, oh crap, like, kind of like grandma, grandpa had a knee replacement. They had a lot of pain. They struggled with it. They weren't really able to do as much. And they're kind of going, oh shit, like, is that coming for me? So my hope is to be able to kind of take what I've learned and put my own personal spin on it, and then be able to package it so that to kind of hopefully give people another option that like knee replacement doesn't have to be your end point, right? That there is more that you can do to improve the ability of your knees, to kind of strengthen your knees, and build up from there. So I'm working on that. So I'm currently kind of jumped into a couple of Facebook knee injury, knee surgery support groups, just kind of watch and learn and ask a couple of questions, interact with people, trying to answer questions where I can, provide just a little bit of hope and encouragement. Knee pain is why I got into physical therapy personally, right? So to me, it's got a very personal feel and connection that, that I was told cartilage in my knee was deteriorating when I was 19. So I remember having that fear of like, oh crap, like I'm already old, like at 19 years old. So trying to, if people want and are looking for something else, hopefully to give, a better process. Because unfortunately, a lot of PTs are not great at exercise progression and providing optimal, the necessary loads to create a change, create the stimulus effect that we want to have them get the physiological improvements, which, pain then kind of follows suit. So improve their function and kind of slightly correlated. Their pain also tends to go down also, but there's de-education, there's education, there's buy-in, there's marketing, and then there's the actual delivery of this concept. So it's going to be a process. That's why I actually got my thing, because I'm also, right, I'm kind of quarantined, I'm kind of isolated, I'm kind of stuck in my apartment, and I don't have any, I've got some stuff, right? I've got a 10 pound and a 20 pound kettlebell, which is weak. I mean, it's not much, but like I've got no step, I've got no tiered steps like we do, in a PT clinic. I've got physical therapy textbooks. I've got some TheraBand, but how can we build this so that people could do it in their homes, like with almost nothing, but so that it's also safe, right? Because if I tell, you or myself, another, somebody in their 20s or 30s to stand on college textbooks, they're going to be fine. But if I tell a 65-year-old, hey, go stand on your encyclopedias, and they slip and fall, it could be a problem.
Farewell.
Yeah. So I'm currently working on, I sent it to you. I sent you my banner picture. I'm calling it the Anti-Knee Replacement Society, in hopes of building a community around, hey, there is more than just the knee replacement. Knee replacement is not your end point. There's more for you to do before and after. And then I'm also hoping to kind of break down some walls of like, this isn't just physical therapy, because people are like, oh, I did physical therapy and it made me worse, or it didn't help. It's like, all right, you went to a restaurant and the restaurant sucked. Are you never going to go to a restaurant again? Mm-hmm. No. You're going to go to a different restaurant. So like, go to a different, better physical therapist and you should have a better result. So there's so much that goes into it. So as a PT, it's almost harder, I think, to pull this off than it is to just be a personal trainer online, where you have less, like a lower, I hate to say it, like a lower living up to your like highest degree or certification, right? He doesn't have to live up to a licensed physical therapist in terms of ethics and standards and
oh, I see what you're saying.
I mean, I don't want, I'm not trying to demean him or I think online trainers and certain fitness individuals have an easier time saying like, you need to do this stretch or exercise, or like do this exercise on, let's say, social media, right? Or on the internet, versus if I say it as a medical professional, I have to kind of cover my own ass, have a bit of a disclaimer of like, this is not direct medical advice, right? Like, make sure you consult with somebody else before you just do this. And I think, there's almost an avenue of like, oh, well, this guy who's a doctor of physical therapy told me to do this online, so I did it, where it was construed that way. And so then come after you versus like, oh, it was just another guy on the internet, another trainer on the internet, another coach on the internet that was doing exercise and I tried it. So I think we have a heavier pull, which is great, but we have to be able to live up to hopefully a higher status and ranking and level of authority and credibility, which I think I can. It's just like, how do you ensure that quality comes through when it's on the internet? So got some questions to answer. I got some kinks to iron out, but I've got a good idea of it in my head. So that's actually what I'm working on, adding people, trying to create that audience. And then I'll grab a few people who say they're bone on bone and hopefully be able to really help them, and then go from there.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like as long as you, I mean, obviously you'll probably put out content in regards to this. And, for me, I think it's one of those things for you that I feel like just having that PT degree automatically, I feel like it's not something you have to live up to. I think people will kind of just take your word for what you're talking about, and I don't know. I feel like a personal trainer would almost have to back himself up more than a PT, because I think a lot of people know that personal trainer education is so like there's a massive spectrum. You can go to a
Yeah.
weekend course, or you can go to 4 years of undergrad, get your bachelor's in exercise science and all of that. So I don't know, man. I feel like having that PT puts you in almost an easier playing field, because you have that instant authority, because people will know you have doctor in front of your name. So people are like, okay, well, this guy probably knows what he's talking about, at least maybe more so than my personal trainer down the street. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's my thought.
No, I think it's a good point. Hopefully it plays out that way, right? Rather than like having to have to really, hopefully that plays in my favor rather than having to totally build up trust and authority and credibility from zero. And technically I still have Craft Physio. I have, telehealth capabilities. And I've got a couple people that I've kind of been in contact with, but otherwise, not too much. I don't have too much going on.
So this isn't Craft.
Yeah, this is separate.
So is this another business or what?
Business idea, but I haven't formed a business entity for it. I haven't gotten to that point yet. So
yeah. Okay.
Very early in the process for me, I'll say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the story, by the way? I saw your post about your knee. I gotta be honest though, I didn't read it all the way though. What's
that's all right. So I'll give it to you real quick. So I was doing a lot of working out and exercises, playing soccer, basketball, working out, running my sophomore year of college, and I kind of had started having pain, and then it didn't go away for a few months, and then I went home for Thanksgiving, and I went to go see the orthopedic doctor, and the guy told me I had chondromalacia patella, and I had no idea what that was, and he didn't really tell me what it was. So I went home and I looked it up, and I started reading more about it, and I was like, oh, it's softening of the cartilage in my kneecap and deterioration away. And I was like, wait, that's like the beginning of arthritis. So I started reading more and more and more, and then I went back to school. I told them like, hey, here's what's up. Here's what I actually think is going on. My IT band is tight was what I said at the time. Kind of went that route, and they're like, oh, wow, you know a lot about this. Do you study this? And I was like, no. And they're like, why not? Like, what do you mean you don't study this? Like, you clearly like it. You clearly spent a ton of time learning and understanding this almost to the point that I do, type thing. It was, PT and the sports medicine doc up in Boston that I saw. And I was like, huh. So then I did my PT, and then I ended up kind of shadowing and hanging out at the outpatient clinic where I did my physical therapy at. And then I applied to get into physical therapy school, and then I transferred and switched majors, and then I became a physical therapist because of it. So definitely I'd say a personal connection of like that inadequate education. And then trying to not settle for just the pathoanatomic problem, right? But what's my function? What can I do about this? So I've got a soft spot. I've always been very fascinated by knee pain, and like to think that I was good at helping people with knee pain. But even then, there have been times where you're kind of bashing your head against the wall trying to get someone to do something without any pain, even if it's the smallest little thing. So now I think I've got the right pieces, and I've had a couple more gray areas or dark areas filled in. Like I make more sense of a bigger picture. So I'm excited about that, and be able to hopefully help more people, and then say, okay, like now I'm kind of home. I don't have a job anymore that I can go to. Let me see if I can do something online and deliver it in a similar capacity that this guy does, but change the audience, right? Who it's for. Kind of change the messaging a little bit. And that's kind of where this came from. So that's where that story ties into where I want to go with this. My personal connection to it.
Yeah. Is that something you ultimately want to bridge into? Like focus more of your effort on
I would
that?
love to. I mean, if that became like my primary source of income and it was like, I become kind of like an online coach with a physical therapy background and education degree, cool. I would not be upset. If it becomes the thing where it's like, hey, I've got 5 people I'm working with and it makes me, let's just say like less than 100, or if it made me $100 a month, I'd be psyched, right? Like if I got to help 4
Right.
more people, 5 people, 1 person with this, then I was able to help 1 more person outside of that, what I could do in the clinic. And once it's kind of up and going, right, that, I hate to say it, like that allure of online, where if you can get your stuff online and have pretty much your base and foundation set up, then you don't have to be on it and at it all the time, because there's video of you showing this exercise, there's video of you answering this question, going over this, blah 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 blah, that you can just kind of go, Poop, here's a 15, a series of 3 videos. They're 5 minutes each. Answers your question about like the anatomy of this. It answers your question about like why the back of your knee hurts and what's involved with that and what you can do about it, and boom boom boom, and then it takes you 5 minutes to 3 minutes to send that versus it took you an hour before, and then you can kind of scale it. Or just push it later on. So yeah, I think that's the thing I'd like to try online, that I'm going to try and I'm going to do online, and see where it goes. If it goes, fantastic. If it doesn't, I'm pretty confident I can get a job again. So
Right.
then I'll
I
try
like
again
it.
later.
Yeah, I like it. I think online's the way to go. Personally, even even speaking as someone that has no clients right now, I already know that the direction is better
Yeah.
from the ability to work wherever. I mean, hopefully we never see a crisis like this, at least for the next time we live. But to know that people who do have online businesses are, for the most part, okay. Now, for people who've lost their jobs, maybe they're not able to do some of those online services that maybe they've done before.
Yep.
But either way, I mean, dude, Zoom, the guy that owns Zoom is raking it in. I
Yeah.
just saw online that in the past, I might be misquoting this, but I think in the past 4 weeks, he made 4 billion with a B $1 billion. Maybe not
Wow.
him, but the Zoom company
Still,
generated.
yeah, like, yeah, increased in value, generated revenue or whatever. $4 billion in 4 weeks.
That is insanity.
I can't even fathom that. I'd be
I
happy
can't.
with $1,000 extra, increase
Right,
on top of what I was making, right? Like if he was doing, let's say 400 million, he goes poof, like I'd be happy with an extra 1,000 a week on top of what I was doing. Four
right.
billion.
Dude,
Holy
he's
crap.
crushed. I don't even know how I mean, I don't know how Zoom works, but I would imagine that uh, it would take more resources since more people are like using it now. But I mean, even this video chat, like it hasn't really, for me, it hasn't skipped a beat. So I don't know how they're able to keep up with all this demand.
It is impressive. I feel like there's been other companies when they have a big blow up explosion like this, like oh crap, our servers can't handle it, and then like a website crashes. But like this is video transmission, receiving and sending video data with good quality,
Right.
and we haven't had a widespread like oh crap, Zoom kind of shit the bed, and now they're now everyone's like stuck and on the hook like now what? It's done a great job so far. I mean, it's got its issues, but
Yeah.
overall, I'm surprised. I'm impressed. It's
Yeah. I love it.
crazy.
The only thing I don't like about it is, and this is for general chatting, totally fine. I'm just being nitpicky as an audio connoisseur. It does compress the audio in a crazy way so that the like even when I post this,
Yeah.
it's gonna sound tinny. Like right now, you sound
Oh, got it.
super clear, and
Yeah.
I'm using a mic too that hopefully sounds pretty good. But
Does.
whatever algorithm they use to compress it, I don't like it. So that's like if I could change just that one thing. And funny enough, a company did, and I forget the name of it. Um, it's some sort of it's an app like this specifically made for people who do podcast interviews,
Okay.
and it has lossless audio. So when you go to export it, the audio is just as clear as how you're hearing it and how I'm hearing it.
Cool.
Which I think
All
is
right.
pretty neat. Like obviously the general audience wouldn't need that, but for me, I don't know. I think that's
No, but I
kind of
think you can feel the difference, right? When you're listening to something that was recorded and it's coming through a speaker versus the quality when it sounds like you're in the room
Mhm.
and there's no other noise, right? Like I think, yeah, most people aren't going to care, but I think even someone like myself who has, I couldn't tell you, which way was up with that sort of thing, audio compression for files, and then, what the science and the metrics behind that are. But,
Yeah.
like when I hear amazing quality sound, like it is so crisp and smooth, you go, whoa, that's high quality, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I can't say I noticed, but
Right. I also, it's me listening through headphones. When I listen to these on replay, I notice it again.
okay.
Like if you're listening through laptop speakers, it honestly isn't going
Yeah,
to
it's
make
probably nothing.
it's not going to make that big of a difference, and it's not worth me upgrading because the podcasting one is, I want to say it's like $20 a month, and it's just not it's not worth it for me to have like incrementally better audio.
Yeah.
It's just me being nitpicky.
We all got our things, right, that we're particular about. So
Right.
yeah,
Exactly.
this is one of your things.
Absolutely. All right, man.
Dude,
Well,
what's your shirt? I'm
huh?
noticing it looks like
Oh,
the shirt you're wearing. Is that a Dr. Seuss?
yeah, it's, trust me, I'm a
Oh,
doctor.
I love that.
Yeah, I got it in, or
Trust me, I'm a doctor, Dr. Seuss.
yeah, I got it at Universal.
Very cool.
Yeah, I saw it and I was like, that, I have to have it. Have to have it.
Have to. Gotta get it.
Absolutely. Well, dude, it was awesome chatting with you.
Yeah, man, it was good catching up. Hearing how you're doing.
Absolutely. I'm gonna go ahead and just stop this.